Over 175 members of the band since 1967. Lead singers have included Bobby Doyle, Jerry Fisher, Al Cooper, David Clayton Thomas, and today the band is fronted by American Idol runner-up Bo Bice. Now, on Under the Classic Rock, we explore Blood, Sweat, and Tears. In the late 60s, whether it be from the influence of the jazz fusion of a Miles Davis or a Maynard Ferguson, horns were being added to rock bands. One of the first rock bands was the Electric Flag with Mike Bloomfield. A musical collaborator of Bloomfield's was keyboardist and producer Al Cooper. Cooper paired up with a studio drummer by the name of Bobby Colomby to put the first Blood, Sweat, and Tears band together with an A-list of New York and LA studio players. Their intent was not to move into the jazz fusion genre, but create their own called jazz rock. Bobby Colomby, who currently owns the brand Blood, Sweat, and Tears, said he and Cooper wanted to replace incessant, whiny guitar solos with improvised, spontaneous jazz solos. The band's first album was Child is Father to the Man.
I can't quit her, 'cause in my darkest nights come on like a light, I can't quit her.
After the first album, Cooper and Colomby clashed about the direction of the band, and Cooper left. Colomby carried on with the first of many changes that the band has gone through in its 50-year stint. It was this second generation of Blood, Sweat, and Tears, though, that most people remember. The first decision Colomby had to make was who was going to front the band. He brought in David Clayton Thomas, a Canadian singer, at the suggestion of Judy Collins.
I'm so glad you came into my life.
In 1968, the second generation of BS&T went to work on an album that became the band's best-selling album. It was a mixture of pop, jazz, folk, and R&B. James Willian Guercio was brought in to produce the album because of his work with the Buckinghams and their horn arrangement.
Kind of a drag.
The second BS&T album was simply called Blood, Sweat, and Tears. It had many top 40 hits, and they're still propelling the band today.
What goes up must come down. Spinning wheel, got to go round. Smiling faces, going places. I'm not scared of dying, and I don't really care if it's peace you find in dying, and if dying time is near. Just bundle up my coffin, 'cause it's cold way down there. I hear that it's cold way down there, yeah, crazy.
The album won a Grammy for Album of the Year in 1970, winning over Crosby, Stills and Nash, Johnny Cash, The Fifth Dimension, and the Beatles' Abbey Road. Next was Blood, Sweat, and Tears 3, a different producer, and they still stuck with doing mostly cover material, though they did have a hit with David Clayton Thomas's tune, Lucretia McEvil. The album was not as successful as their previous Grammy winner, but Blood, Sweat, and Tears was leading the wave of the jazz rock sound with bands like Ides of March, Tower of Power, and Chicago.
Go down gambling.
In 1971, the band released BS&T 4, or Blood, Sweat, and Tears 4, with another producer, and they rearranged the horn section a bit. The album did well in the charts because of the FM format, but did not spur any big-selling top 40 hits. Popularity started to wane, record sales took a dip, and thus began the revolving door of musicians that still goes on today.
Mama gets high when a good man in the morning gives her tea and feeds her milk and apple pie. Mama, don't cry.
At the end of 1971, the band's signature sound departed. David Clayton Thomas left to pursue a solo career. Now, I wonder if the band had ventured into writing more of their own material, had kept the same producer, much like Chicago did, that they would have had a much longer pop shelf life.
Of the Snow Queen.
With the infusion of new talent in 1972, mostly from the jazz side of things, the band did venture into a more jazz fusion genre and kept a following of fans that were mostly musicians digging the BS&T experimentation. The band kept touring through the mid-70s and even brought back David Clayton Thomas in 1974 to see if they could boost their lackluster sales.
What you think this world is coming to?
In 1975, New Blood was released, but did not propel the band back into the 70-71 levels of success, and thus more personnel shuffling. The band, though, was attracting A-list players like guitarist Mike Stern, Steve Kahn, and at one point in 1975, bass virtuoso Jaco Pastorius toured with the band. If you're not into the jazz genre, these names may not register, but the point is the band was attracting A-list jazz players from all over the world. Therefore, the audience shifted from a pop orientation to jazz enthusiasts. The band is still out doing worldwide concerts, attracting paying customers, and still under the direction of Bobby Colomby. Some true and false about Blood, Sweat, and Tears before we pull the mouthpieces out of our trumpets. True, Blood, Sweat, and Tears did perform at Woodstock in 1969. They were a headlining act. But as soon as the band went on, their manager told the film crews to turn the cameras off. Whoops. And false, Herbie Hancock was never a member of Blood, Sweat, and Tears, either for recording or for live shows. You can hear and download Under the Classic Rock on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, Player FM, and on iHeartRadio. If you have any suggestions for upcoming shows, you can reach me at undercr@gmail.com or on the Under the Classic Rock Facebook page. I thank you for listening and downloading Under the Classic Rock. We'll talk to you soon.